Football is a strange old game at the best of times. So I just want to bring you the story that came on my radar in the last few days ahead of the first round of group games in the women's side of the draw. So the opening match, or one of the opening matches, kicking off today at 4 p.m, which I've already previewed. Check out the preview, explain how the women's side of the Olympic football draw actually works as well. But yeah, Canada are playing against New Zealand today in Paris. Well, in France anyway, it's Paris 24, but it could be played elsewhere in France. But apparently, two of the backroom staff for the Canadian women's national team. This is the full national team, by the way. The women's game does not have under 23 restrictions like the men's does. This is the full national team of Canada, who are one of the best teams in the world in the women's game. Not bad in the men's game either, to be fair. But two of the backroom staff have been sent home back to Canada because allegedly they flew a drone over the New Zealand women's training camp to spy on them ahead of their match. Which, if you didn't know, is pretty bad. That's more than illegal in a footballing sense. It's beyond the Spygate we had in football with Marcelo Bielsa when he was in charge of Leeds, if you remember that. Spying on, I believe it was Derby, sending just a dude down to the Derby training ground, just posing incognito with some looking glasses, binoculars, that's what I'm looking for. But yeah, so because of that, those staff members have been sent home, and the manager of the Canadian national team, Beverly Priestman, is not going to take charge of the game as a result. So I don't know who's going to actually be there in the dugout, but yeah, the assistant manager, Jasmine Manda, has been sent home, for unaccredited analysis, along with Joseph Lombardi. The Canadian Olympic Committee, who runs the Canadian Olympic team, so obviously oversees the football and everything else that Canada's competing in these Summer Olympic Games, has said the Canadian Olympic Committee stands for fair play and we are shocked and disappointed. We offer our heartfelt apologies to the New Zealand football team, to all the players affected, and to the New Zealand Olympic Committee. Oh man, honestly, football's a wild sport at the best of times, it really is. In all seriousness, this is really terrible of them to do. I shouldn't be laughing, it shouldn't be funny. It's downright espionage. This is terrible. This is unsolicited, spying. That's what it is. It's spying on them. It's Spygate Olympics Paris 24. It's not right. It's not right. And I'm glad they've been caught doing it, but oh my god. The thing that I don't get on top of that as well is the drones that they've allegedly flown over the training camp, which they've done because, let's be honest here, there's no smoke without fire. They wouldn't send them home if they didn't do it. Who's paid for them? Has the Olympic Committee paid for them? Were they just oh yeah, so we need some drones to watch our games from? Because that's something that a lot of teams do now. They'll watch their games from a bird's eye view like you used to do in Football Manager back in the day for the 2D view. And they'll do that with drones now. With it just oh yeah, we'll just use these for, looking at our training sessions, to analyse what we're doing, what we're not doing well. And then they just flew it over to New Zealand's training. I've no idea if New Zealand's training camp is anywhere near Canada's. Can you imagine if it was the other end of the country and they just sent a drone and it gets picked up by air traffic control or something? I don't even know, man. That's the wildest story at the Olympics football. Who says that football at the Olympics is boring? I don't. I think it's very entertaining because you see all kinds of crazy stuff like this. This had never... Can you imagine this if this happened at the World Cup? Can you imagine if it happens at the Euros or the Copa America? It just never would stand. It'd be disqualified for it or something probably. But in the Olympics, I feel like they're allowed to get away with more. But yeah, they've obviously not got away with this. They've been punished, and rightfully so. But yeah, for more wild stories from the weird, wacky world of football, keep it tuned right here to thefootballchronicle.com, where we're going to cover all of these Olympics football games throughout the tournament.